In the heart of a small town, nestled between rolling hills and quiet streets, there was an elementary school called Willowbrook. The teachers at Willowbrook were known for their dedication, but there was one in particular who stood out, Mrs. Thompson. Her classroom was a haven for children, a place where they could feel safe, loved, and understood. Mrs. Thompson had taught at Willowbrook for over 20 years. She had seen children from all walks of life pass through her doors, each with their own unique stories, hopes, and struggles. Over the years, she had learned that sometimes the greatest lessons weren't found in textbooks, but in the quiet, unspoken moments of understanding and compassion. One day, Mrs. Thompson attended a workshop where she learned about a simple yet profound idea. The speaker, a child psychologist, spoke about the importance of being aware of the hidden struggles that children might bring to school. Sometimes, all it takes is a little extra patience, a kind word, or just a look of understanding to make a difference, the psychologist said. Mrs. Thompson listened intently, thinking about the children in her care. The next morning, Mrs. Thompson sent a message to the parents of her students. "Dear parents, I know that life can sometimes be challenging, and our children can feel the weight of those challenges too. If your family is experiencing difficulties at home, please know that I am happy to provide additional support at school. I understand that you may not always be able to share details, and that's okay. If your child is coming to school after a difficult night, morning, or weekend, just send me a quick email with the subject line, 'Handle with care.' Nothing else needs to be said. This will let me know that your child may need extra time, patience, or help that day. Thank you for trusting me with your children. Together, we can make sure they feel safe and supported." The response from parents was immediate and heartfelt. Many thanked Mrs. Thompson for her understanding and care. Some shared brief glimpses into the challenges they were facing: illnesses, financial difficulties, family struggles, things that might affect their children's ability to focus or participate fully at school. One day, Mrs. Thompson received an email with the subject line, "Handle with care." It was from the mother of a little boy named Jacob, a bright and sensitive child who often came to school with a smile but had recently seemed more withdrawn. The email contained no other details, but Mrs. Thompson understood what it meant. That morning, when Jacob walked into the classroom, Mrs. Thompson greeted him with her usual warmth, but gave him a little extra attention. She noticed the slight droop in his shoulders and the way he avoided eye contact. Without making a fuss, she quietly adjusted her plans for the day. She gave Jacob a special task that allowed him to work at his own pace, checked in with him frequently, and paired him with a kind classmate who she knew would be gentle and patient. As the day went on, Jacob slowly began to open up. He smiled a little more, and by the afternoon, he was laughing along with the other children. Mrs. Thompson didn't ask him about what had happened at home. She knew that whatever it wasn't her job to pry. Her job was to make sure Jacob felt safe, loved, and supported at school. Over the next few weeks, Mrs. Thompson received more Handle with Care emails from other parents. Each time, she responded with the same quiet, unobtrusive support. She adjusted her teaching, offered extra kindness, and made sure the children knew they were not alone. The impact of Mrs. Thompson's simple system rippled throughout the school. Other teachers began to adopt the Handle with Care approach, and soon it became a part of the school's culture. The children who needed it most received the extra support they needed without having to explain or justify their feelings. They knew that at Willowbrook, they could find a place where they were understood. Years later, when the children who had passed through Mrs. Thompson's class looked back on their school days, they didn't always remember the lessons she taught from the blackboard, but they remembered the way she made them feel: safe, cared for, and valued. They remembered that there was a place where they could go when the world felt heavy, and they needed someone to understand. And Mrs. Thompson, in her quiet and humble way, continued to teach, knowing that sometimes the most important lessons are the ones that are never written down but felt deeply in the heart.